when you're sitting on the provider side, a lot of your interactions with vendors is contract negotiation, SOW terms, right? And then of course there's the support, component of it. But for me, it was really, I wanted to understand what happens before we get to that.
Welcome to the Risk Never Sleeps podcast, in which we learn about the people that are on the front lines delivering and protecting patient care. I'm Ed Gaudet, the host of our program, and today I am pleased to be joined by Andrea Daugherty.
Thank you so much, Ed. I have to say, I've been waiting a really long time for you to finally invite me on. So I'm so happy to be here.
Bad, I know. And we've known each other for years. I consider us friends, and sometimes you miss your friends because so no, this is awesome. I'm excited, and you wore the hat.
I'm in the holiday spirit.
You are. Are you done with your shopping?
Yes, for the most part. I think. Well, yes, I'm done, but I'm still waiting on some things to arrive in the mail. So yeah.
And I just got a shipment. I was in Boston this week, so I just got back, and I just got a shipment of things. So I was hoping nobody opened them because there's some interesting gifts in there for people.
Yeah, I know. Interestingly enough, I had a few trips at the beginning of December, kind of back-to-back weeks, and then I get home last week and walk into, this week, walk into my office, and it's literally just like stacked of all these boxes. And I'm like, well, at least I know nobody opened them.
Yeah.
My daughter asked me if I was rearranging, if I bought new furniture to rearrange my office. So at least she hasn't caught on yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I assume, did she give you a list of things? Like she
gave me a list. Yeah. Although we have this thing, we started this kind of tradition a few years ago to move away from kind of the toys and really focus on like experiences and trips and things like that. And so her trip for this year is her first Broadway play, which we're seeing over spring break in New York, which will subsequently also be her first trip to New York City. And then from there, we're going to go spend a week in London. So it's a pretty lucky girl.
Great. She's never been to London.
She's never been to London. This is her first international trip. She's so excited. All I keep hearing about is this passport. I can't wait to get my passport. I'm so excited. So mom's a little behind the curve on that one. So we'll take care of that over winter break.
And where are you staying? You're staying right in the city, or?
We're staying in the city, yes. But we'll do some day trips out as well. So it's gonna be a blast. I'm so excited. I'm really excited for her because she's really leaned into it and leveraging her Alexa to like plan out things or like try and figure out fun things to do while she's there.
Yeah.
So it's become kind of this little thing at dinner. Well, she'll come down and she'll be like, "Oh, I found this new activity for us to do," or "Can we go to this city?" And so it's really fun. She's into it. So
now, does she know about the eye?
She does. So the London Eye. She, interestingly enough, last year she did a project on the London Eye, and it was she had to choose something to research. And I forget how I think maybe it was her teacher had said something about it, and so. Anyways, so she, and I probably still have her little paper project laying around here somewhere.
Oh, that's
but so she's pretty excited about it. And I'm excited for her because, she's 9. So she's at that age where she'll appreciate these trips a little bit more. And so.
Is that fourth grade?
Fourth grade, yeah.
Yeah. They're like little people in fourth. You're like a little person in fourth grade.
Yeah, my little broke bestie is what I call her.
That's right. Yeah, and well, that's exciting. So museums too.
Museums. Yes. So she hasn't quite figured out the appreciation. She hasn't quite figured out how to appreciate the appreciation that my husband and I have for fine art, but. I'm hoping that, with this trip, even some of the things we have planned for New York City, she'll start to appreciate it. But I have to remember again, she's only 9, so it'll still be fantastic. I'm super excited.
Yeah, awesome. So bring us up to speed. You've had a lot going on in your professional life.
Yeah, I like to keep things interesting, shall we say? Yeah. So. I think, it's crazy to think you and I met probably beginning of 2020 before the pandemic when I had just landed at UT Austin, joined Aaron Mary and, had come on board to build out their information security program for the med school and the healthcare enterprise. And quickly realized that there were a lot of gaps in some other technical areas. And so, had the privilege, shall we say, of leading those, taking over and leading those. And, I remember as we were kind of errands going through, I'm sitting in his office and I'm like, okay, here's the gaps. Here's what we need. Like, here's how we're going to manage this. Here's a strategy I'm proposing to you. And I remember him saying, do you know Ed Gaudet? And I'm like, should I know him? Should that? He's like, I have to introduce you to him. He's a great friend of mine, fantastic guy. Girl dad, you'll get along, you'll love him. And I'm like, okay, sure. And I remember meeting you and I'm like, okay, spot on. Like, he's great. We've been fast friends ever since. So it's really interesting just to kind of think back over the past 5 years, spent that time at UT and help build, responding to the pandemic and building out their information security program, and then moving on, being appointed into the CIO role, and then deciding to leave the organization and do something different. And so I actually just wrapped up my tenure with SHI. And so for those in the audience who aren't familiar, SHI is a value-added reseller. Their big competitors are like WWT, CDW, $15 billion privately held, female minority-owned company. Great culture, doing a lot of great things. I was asked to come on board and really help them build out their healthcare vertical. I'm really focusing a lot on things like cybersecurity in healthcare. And obviously with my background and building out programs at 2 different organizations and having that CISSP certification, really talking a lot about it, kind of living it, breathing it, it made sense. And it was an opportunity for me to do something a little bit different, kind of off the beaten path, and work with some fantastic vendors who are well known, I'll say, in our industry, and just think about our approach to cybersecurity a little bit differently, really focusing on more of the proactive approach and as opposed to reactive. I think this year alone has hands down been the most tumultuous year for healthcare relative to cyber events. And so I think that got the attention of a lot of folks from the board level to frontline staff, really saying, what can we do and how can we do more? And so, it's been interesting. I'm kind of in this little transition period where I'm fortunate to be able to just spend some quality time at home with my daughter and my husband and my 5 dogs. And but in the midst of all
quiet there, it's quiet.
It's quiet. It actually, surprisingly, it is really quiet here right now. But it's been interesting during this time, right? It's given me an opportunity to kind of catch up on some of the stuff that you kind of miss during the hustle and bustle of every day. It's been an interesting ride. I have some exciting things planned that I'll be sharing after the new year.
Can't wait. We'll have you back on. We'll have you back on for an update too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What so I always think it's interesting when people stay in industry but go to the to a different side of the industry.
We can call it the dark side. It is.
Well, no. I'm on the dark side. I don't like to call it.
You
are. So I try not to call it. But that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on the vendor side, what perspective did you gain that you otherwise didn't have before?
Yeah. One of the things that was really compelling about me stepping into that head of digital healthcare role at SHI was really getting an opportunity to peek behind the curtain, or I'd say even maybe open the curtain. When you're sitting on the provider side, a lot of your interactions with vendors is contract negotiation, SOW terms, right? And then of course there's the support, component of it. But for me, it was really, I wanted to understand what happens before we get to that, right? What happens, between the value-added reseller and the vendor before they're sitting in front of the CIO or director of information security or any other pivotal roles, right? In the healthcare IT organization. And for me, I just needed to understand kind of the inner workings. So how these deals are put together, why they're structured this way, how the bits and the bytes and the moving pieces all come together to really deliver what their customers need. And I've kind of done that all of my career, right? If I'm interested in something, I'm just going to go do it. It's not enough to just ask questions. It's like, I want to be in it. I learn by doing. That's how I learn best. And so for me, it was like, let me go see what they're doing. And I learned a lot. I mean, I think one of the most interesting things was kind of getting a peek behind the strategic roadmap and planning for some of these vendors, right? Understanding how they're prioritizing some of the features and functionalities and how that correlates to what's happening in industry, right? So typically you have kind of that reactive response from providers, right? As they're subject of an incident, a cyber incident. And so they have to then, go respond to that, not only respond to that, but then certainly, really reevaluate their tech stack and what they need going forward. It's a little bit opposite. In fact, a lot opposite on the vendor side, right? They're already anticipating that someone's going to experience some sort of cyber incident. And so they're planning, it's like, okay, if this, then that, right? So there's some logic there that's happening on the vendor side that's not necessarily happening on the provider side. And something that I found interesting kind of playing, I think, being saddled or straddled, if you will, and having one foot in both aisles was how do we take these conversations that these vendors are having during their strategic planning sessions and as they're having kind of these conversations amongst themselves and really bring them forward over to the provider side so that we're all talking about the same thing at the same time. I feel like it's kind of, they're a little bit ahead in some of the preparation and planning because they're looking at what anticipating future needs. And healthcare, the providers just haven't quite gotten there. So that was a very interesting, I think, dynamic that I didn't anticipate kind of going into that role.
So I know we're not going to talk about where you're going, but assuming you go to the provider side, what would you do differently now that you know that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'm looking at my partners, right? Who are my strategic partners? I think that's something that we've seen a lot of in this past year and we'll see more of in 2025. It's really, what do those partnerships look like? And how do we create these strategic partnerships with our vendor partners to make sure that they're delivering, all of the things that we need? And so I'm certainly looking at our partnerships. Of course, I'm looking at the tech stack, making sure infrastructure is where it needs to be. I can't tell you how many conversations I had with customers that were, they're wanting to go buy all the bells and the whistles and the bright, shiny things. And they have a crumbling infrastructure. And right, it's like you have to walk before you can crawl, right? So, I think there's a culmination of things I've learned. I mean, the infrastructure thing, that's kind of a no-brainer, but really looking at the tech stack, the solutions, what's already there. Something that we see a lot of is, people were really excited to go spend on these different solutions, but they've not actually fully implemented them, right? So really looking at, refining or maximizing the current investments, and then kind of looking into the future, right? As we look across the organization and really identify those areas of risk, I think another opportunity is partnering with those key stakeholders. So our frontline staff, right? They're the first line of defense. And aside from more often than not, right? I think we're starting to trend towards, engaging them earlier, but, their exposure is their annual cyber training. And that's it. Maybe there was a quarterly phishing campaign, right? I think there's a huge opportunity to really get those folks involved much earlier as we're looking at new solutions, as we're doing, some of the validation, as we're looking at the different rules and how that's going to impact them. I think it's really important to kind of create this more cohesive and collaborative group of end users across the spectrum to ensure that, we're thinking about everyone in every way at every step of the process.
I love that. It's a nice strategic playbook too for the new year as we go into 2025. And as you look ahead, and you've had some time to reflect, you're probably sort of still reflecting, right? You're still sort of in that zone. What are some of the things you predict will happen next year in healthcare?
Well, I think next year is just going to be an interesting year across the board for the United States as our administration changes, right? We always expect, some oddities during the election years, and certainly, when the administration changes, so it's going to be very interesting. I know that there are already some conversations around, are some of these cabinet nominees going to impact what the progress that we've made relative to some of those regulatory requirements or regulatory desires? And so I think we'll see a lot of activity in that realm. So it'll be very interesting. I've certainly been paying very close attention, kind of reading the tea leaves and really focusing a lot more on policy. I'll say maybe more so than I had been. I actually have the time to dive into it a little bit more. So I think we'll see a lot of activity in that realm around policy. And obviously there's going to be some residual effects, either positive or negative, one way or the other, as a result of that. And it's going to be very interesting because I anticipate that we're going to see a lot of shifts from a strategic perspective with our vendors and kind of how they're approaching the market and continuing to support the market as well.
Yeah. Do you think we'll get a modern day cybersecurity standard? Like, will the CPGs finally make it into some type of legislative vehicle?
I would say that I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that, when we really think about it, right? CPGs, right? They're mapped to NIST. And I think a lot of our healthcare organizations at this point, they're following them. Obviously, there are the smaller, more rural organizations that just don't have the resources. Something that I really would like to see is some additional funding to help some of those smaller, more rural, critical care access hospitals, who have an IT team of 5 and they don't have a CISO or a CIO, and their director is the highest ranking leader in their organization. And that individual is doing, wearing the hats of multiple. So, I think CPGs are a step in the right direction. I don't know that there'll be, we'll see legislative movement in this year or that next year. I think it's a lot's up in the air, right, with our new administration, but I certainly hope that momentum continues, and we're able to build upon that.
So how did you get into healthcare? What's your origin story?
Yeah. I feel like I'm a superhero. What's your origin story? Yeah, interestingly enough. So I've actually grown up in healthcare. Interesting. My mom's a nurse. And so, I was introduced to it from a very early age, and, being around the hospital and, my dad and, him being in and out. And so it was just kind of like, it felt just natural to me as a part of my life. And as I got older and really wanted to trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I kept being drawn back to healthcare. When I was in my teenage years, my sister suffered a pretty substantial amount of healthcare issues. She had type 1 diabetes. She had a lot of different complications as a result of that. She had end-stage renal failure. She was on dialysis at home and at the dialysis center. She went through a kidney transplant. She lost her vision. So there were a lot of things that, although we were 11 years apart, we were absolutely inseparable, best friends. And it was me really stepping into that caregiver role as I got into my late teens and early 20s, where I realized that this has purpose. Not only am I helping her navigate her life, but I'm doing something that's really hopefully helping others too. I know it was a huge help for my parents as they're, trying to balance all of this and help. And so I initially started off thinking I was going to be a pharmacist, right? And my sister, I would help with her, organize all of her medications. And I was actually good at math and science. So I'm like, okay, this makes sense. I did about 1.5 years at St. Louis College of Pharmacy and realized really quickly that this was not what I wanted to do. And so made my way back to Kansas City and thought maybe, okay, I'll pursue nursing. Yeah, I didn't want to do that. At that point, I'm just like, I just need to graduate. So ended up with a biology degree, later went back, added a business degree on top of that. But during that time, I had an opportunity to work as an administrative assistant for the dean of our pharmacy school at UMKC. I did an internship with the University of Kansas, rolling out their initial implementation of Epic. And so that was really my intro to like a full scale EHR implementation. I also worked part-time as a pharmacy tech during my undergrad. So everywhere I looked, I was surrounded by healthcare. And then when I graduated, Cerner, living in Kansas City, recruited very heavily. And I was like, you know what? Why not? And so that's kind of where it started. And it was interesting. I always had a love for technology and was the one that was, learning how to do HTML and customize, right? Early era of social media, customize, my Zynga page and my MySpace page. And I realized what's that?
MySpace. Most of the kids on the call right now don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, right? Like I'm dating myself, certainly. But it wasn't until I was at Cerner where I realized that I could combine the two, right? The technology, as well as the healthcare. And I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
And Neil Patterson, rest his soul, was such an inspiring leader. And, I drank the Cerner Kool-Aid. I was all in. It was a great place to really cut my teeth, shall we say, relative to healthcare. And I went all in after that. So, yeah.
Never looked back. That's awesome.
Yeah, never looked back. I can't imagine. There's a lot of other things I could do in the world, but at the end of the day, I can't imagine being in any other industry where I could have as large of an impact as I have in healthcare.
The thing I found when I finally got into healthcare was that everyone thinks they really know what it is. And then you get in and you go, oh, wow, there's so much I didn't know about healthcare. All my assumptions were incorrect.
Yeah.
And the power of that shared mission is so important. And the relationships you develop, with everyone that is serving together with that single purpose in mind and single mission in mind I get chills when I talk about it because it's so unique.
It is.
And it's like no other industry.
No other industry. Well, and also, Ed, we're all patients. Every single one of us is a patient. And whether we realize it or not, we will, if we haven't already, we will be a caregiver at some point in our lives.
Yes.
And so not only being able to, obviously that there's lived experiences, but, bringing kind of those professional experience to bear and kind of marrying it together. I say that I've had the success in my career because of my experience as a patient and a caregiver. Absolutely. And being able to bring that, I know what it's like being on the receiving end of healthcare delivery and some of the frustrations that I've experienced with technology. So if I'm in a position to influence that or lead some strategic change around that, then absolutely, why wouldn't I? And I think that's what a lot of us really share and why we stay in healthcare.
Yeah, and I think you're when we talked about a superhero, your superpower, whether you know it or not, is your empathy.
Yeah,
you have this empathy, and for you to go on the vendor side, really again is that a search for empathy.
Yeah,
and now you have that side to bring. I mean, it's incredible, and I find that when things aren't going well, it's always about there's a lack of empathy somewhere. Someone doesn't understand the other side, or so it's that's so awesome. So outside of healthcare, if you weren't doing this, what are you most passionate about? What would you be doing if you weren't doing healthcare?
That's a great question. It's really been interesting. I think passions have certainly shifted over the years, especially as you become a parent. And I have to say, spending time with my daughter is absolutely my pride and joy. It's, and as cliche as it sounds, right? Like I was a stay-at-home mom, right? 6 months into it. And I was like, okay, I need to go back to work. I love her.
I saw a little fear in your eyes right there. I saw this.
Like, I really need this, and I think it was, I've always kind of prided myself in having some balance and doing the things right. I'm passionate about healthcare. I really am. And so, I experienced some pretty substantial health challenges the past couple of years. I think most folks know that are close to me or in my inner circle know that I experienced a series of strokes, and that was very scary for a lot of different reasons. But going through all of that, all I could think about was my daughter. And so really just, during my mini sabbatical, as I'm in this transition period, really just focusing on the things that she and I enjoy doing together. So she's a huge golfer. I've gotten into golfing recently, gotten more serious about it. My husband got me some custom clubs for our anniversary this past September. I've taken some lessons.
Which brand?
So I got you will put me on the spot right now. Oh my gosh, what are they? I'll tell you in just a second.
Okay.
This is how new to golf. But they're actually, I love them. And I started taking lessons with the same pro that my daughter takes lessons with year round. And
nice.
So doing that, I love gardening. So super into gardening, building out my little rose garden in our front, but also, nice. So, also vegetables and things of that sort in our backyard, and different flowers and plants, as well.
What's your favorite flower?
So pennies are my favorite flower.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
they're really hard to grow here in Central Texas. And there's a very small window of time where you can actually purchase them from florists. And that window is actually right now. So like a week or two before Thanksgiving until like mid-December. So
really?
I make sure I like all the places, although make sure I go to all the different florists so I can have them all around my house during this period of time.
You're cornering the market.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny. One of the places I frequent, like the lady, we're on a first name basis, and she's like, "Oh, just in time, right?" So funny. I clear her out.
They are.
I'll leave it to you for others. But I did find a variety that I was able to actually bulbs that I planted in the winter last year that actually bloomed in my front yard this year. So I was super, super excited. But they're so temperamental, and you have to have like the right soil acidity, and it's interesting. But I've really gotten into that. The other thing I would say is really traveling. I think kind of creating these opportunities to travel with my daughter and help and being able to see the world through her eyes.
Yeah, is that cool?
Is pretty exciting for me. So
yeah, awesome. All right, you can go back in time. What would you
also Kansas City Chiefs, because it is football season and we're 13-1.
And there it is. There it is.
We couldn't get through it without it.
Oh man, thanks for that. We the Patriots are just. You mean you have the Patriots of 10 years ago right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have.
What do you think about your buddy Bill going to North Carolina, though?
My God, don't even get me started. I'm so disgusted with the current organization.
Yeah.
Hey, how about those Celtics? And the Bruins, I think, are starting to come back. They got rid of their coach, thank God.
All right.
And but no, I just it's so sad to watch them. What are they, 3-11, 3-10, something like that now. It's just awful. It's just like the Raiders still have the worst record. Yeah. They lost last night, but I thought
that was awful. There was 2 seconds left, and they threw that interception in the end zone.
So terrible. I used to be when I was younger. So I grew up in Connecticut. We don't really have a team.
Yeah.
Either we're Patriots, or then if you played football, I played midget football. And then the team you played for became your team. So I played for the Raiders. So the Raiders became my team. So I was a big Raiders fan up until I moved here and went to school here in Boston. And then I fell in love with the Patriots. And at the time they weren't doing great. So it wasn't like I followed Brady.
Yeah.
Steve Grogan was playing, and actually Jim Plunkett was a quarterback. Jim Plunkett played for the Raiders, and he was the quarterback back then for the Patriots.
Man,
but I'm more of a hockey fan. I love the Bruins.
Okay,
that's my Bruins. Red Sox.
Red Sox. I went to my first Sox games this year.
You did this year?
Yeah, this year.
What did you
amazing.
think of the stadium?
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean,
so great.
It's so cool. And right, you've seen it in the movies, but like you just until you experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
All right, go back in time. What would you tell your 20-year-old self? Which is like last week for you, right? So
well, thank you. I'm flattered. A little bit longer than last week, but I appreciate that. I think back to my 20-year-old self, and I think I was at that time, I had no clue what I was doing, like most 20-year-olds. It's like, yeah, I'm just figuring it out. But I think I would just tell myself to just trust that it's all going to be okay. Right. I think that I had this preconceived notion that I had to hit all of these life milestones by a certain age. And if I didn't, then my career trajectory or my life trajectory was just going to be completely upended. And that's not the case. I mean, I actually could have never, I don't think at 20 years old, I would have never imagined I'd be where I am now and achieved all of the amazing things that I've achieved in my career. So you don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay to just like believe that you're doing the right thing and you'll be led to where you're meant to be.
I love that. I do believe that too. The universe has a plan.
Yeah.
Let it do its thing.
Yeah.
Don't get too crazy.
Worked up about it. I mean, roll up your sleeves and put put a little elbow grease in there along the way. Certainly.
You have to work unless you're smart and you buy stock at an early age and you're
that's true. I mean, that'd be great. If only I had a thought about that my senior year of high school.
Yeah, all these Bitcoin billionaires, right?
Yeah.
30 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the riskiest thing you've ever done? Have to ask that question. Risk Never Sleeps podcast.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to think about that one.
You do any skydiving?
Yeah, I mean that's risky, but like I don't know. I guess I am a thrill-seeking individual. So
well, you should have a list.
Yeah. So I'm going through this list mentally in my head to think
it's a rated G program, so you have to keep it.
That probably is in terms of actual or bungee jumping.
You did bungee jumping. Where'd you do that?
Yeah. Did that when I was 25 years old in Grand Canyon.
What is that like? That must be.
My heart was in my throat.
How fast is it?
I don't even know.
Oh, you did?
I just, one that you're there and then and then I think the thing that gets you though is like, it's fine when you're free falling, but when you get to the end of that fall and the bungee brings you back up, that's where you just feel like, and you're just kind of, it's not, right? When you're falling, obviously gravity is pulling you down, but then you're falling, you're going back up and you just, that was probably the riskiest thing.
Ooh. And what do you do? A couple times? You go up and down?
Yeah, a couple times. And it, slowly. And the recoil is less and less each time.
Yeah. No, I always thought that was really cool. And I've seen some of the jumps in Australia that look really nice. And
what I'd love to do is actually go shark diving off the Ivory Coast. That's on my bucket list.
You're singing my tune. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was in Aruba and I swam with a shark.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've swam and like scuba dive with like black tip sharks and stuff, but they're not like aggressive. I want to like go swim in the middle of the ocean, some great whites or something.
Great whites.
Yeah. Where there's like chum,
Yeah.
And 15 yards away from me and they're knocking into the cage. Yeah, that's what I want to do. You
want to be a little pilot fish on top of it?
Yeah.
Look at this. Yeah, that's right. Cool. You're on a desert island. You could bring 5 records, albums with you. What type of music do you like? Or movies? It could be either or.
Okay. So I grew up during not during the Motown era, but my parents were huge Motown folks. And my dad was a huge blues guy.
Oh, nice.
So I, love my Motown music. I love blues and jazz. So 5 albums. I would absolutely have to say probably the best of Otis Redding. Actually, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay is undoubtedly, hands down, one of my favorite songs. When I was a little girl. So my dad grew up in the country, southern Missouri, and we had on our 120 acres that we have down there, there are these little fishing holes. I mean, they're like ditches, but we would fish with like bamboo poles. So literally it's just a stick of bamboo with some fishing line and a hook. And it was like the most simplistic thing. But we would, and there were pecan trees like close to the water. And my dad would just play that song in his pickup truck. And it's like some of the best memories I have as a little girl. And so that will forever be probably one of my top favorite songs. So I would say greatest hits of Otis Redding. Isley Brothers is also another one.
Nice, yeah.
Do love the Isley Brothers. I grew up during the, when Michael Jackson was really taking off. So I'm an 80s baby, right? So he was in his prime. So definitely Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson.
Nice.
And let's see. Trying to think probably from I think number 5. Probably gonna be blues. I don't know.
Buddy Guy? You a Buddy Guy fan?
I do. I am a Buddy Guy. Actually, I ran into him at Becker's a couple years ago. I went and saw him. Signed a book.
His club?
Yep.
I've been there. It's awesome.
I ran into him and had a good conversation with him. Took a picture. My mom's a huge Buddy Guy fan.
Nice.
And I don't know. That one, number 5 is a hard one. Probably ZZ Hill.
Oh.
Yeah. ZZ Hill.
I don't know that. Is that contemporary or old school? Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Old school. Old school blues.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great. It's been great to catch up with you.
Likewise.
A long time coming. Appreciate you, and I'll see you maybe in the conference soon, right?
Yeah, we'll see each other soon.
At Vive or
I'll be at Vive. You'll see me in all the normal events, all the normal places. I'll still be around.
Awesome.
But
well, happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I did this so much. Do I get my Risk Never Sleeps shirt now?
We have to cut that out. We might have to we'll see what we can do.
Awesome.
But I'll need your home address for that.
We can arrange that. We can certainly arrange that.
You'll have to then take a picture.
There we go. Absolutely, of course. Awesome.
My brother will be excited. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. All right.
Tell him I said hello.
I will.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays. To him as well, and to your wife and daughters as well.
Thank you. You too, to your family. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, Ed.
Take care. And this is Ed Gaudet from the Risk Never Sleeps podcast. And if you're on the front lines protecting patient care and delivering patient care, remember to stay vigilant because risk never sleeps.
Yeah.